Megyn Kelly today. I'm Stephanie Gosk, filling in for Megyn. She's on assignment, and we'll be back tomorrow, thank God. We've got a lot to discuss this morning, and here to help me break down what's making the rounds, NBC's Craig Melvin, host of... Give him a round of applause. Host of PBS's In Principle, Amy Holmes, and MSNBC contributor Noah Rothman. Thanks for joining me, you guys. This morning, the FBI background investigation of Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh is growing, but the clock is ticking. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says there will be a vote on Kavanaugh's nomination this week. We're going to talk all about it, but first, NBC's Peter Alexander has the latest.
President Trump in Tennessee overnight, standing by Judge Brett Kavanaugh and blasting Democrats.
Let's see how it all works out, but I'll tell you what, they're trying to destroy a very fine person, and we can't let it happen.
It comes as the White House authorized the FBI to expand the scope of its background investigation into Kavanaugh, giving the FBI the green light to interview anyone it deems necessary, as long as the review is wrapped up by Friday, according to a senior U.S. official and another source briefed on the matter.
Peter, I think the FBI should interview anybody that they want within reason. But you have to say within reason. They should interview, but they should also be guided, and I'm being guided, by what the senators are looking for.
Should Brett Kavanaugh be interviewed by the FBI?
I think so. I think it's fine if they do.
Earlier, Republican Jeff Flake, who first called for the week-long investigation, questioned why the White House had not given the FBI free rein in the first place.
It does no good to have an investigation that just gives us more cover, for example. We actually need to find out what we can find out.
It's a sudden shift by the White House after first directing the FBI to interview only 4 people, including the 3 witnesses Christine Blasey Ford says were at that high school party where she alleges Kavanaugh sexually assaulted her, an allegation he vigorously denies. 2 of those people have said they don't recall the alleged event. An attorney for the other witness, Kavanaugh's friend Mark Judge, tells NBC News he's been interviewed by the FBI, but his interview has not been completed. Previously, Judge has said, "I never saw Brett act in the manner Dr. Ford describes." Also on the list, Deborah Ramirez, who's accused Kavanaugh of exposing himself to her at a dorm party when both were at Yale, an allegation he also denies. Ramirez has already been interviewed by the FBI, but a source familiar with the conversation says Ramirez gave agents a list of witnesses who she says can corroborate her claim. NBC News has obtained this photo of Kavanaugh and Ramirez at a wedding in 1997, over a decade after the alleged incident, and text messages that a mutual friend says appear to show Kavanaugh directly communicating with friends he hoped would refute Ramirez's claims before the New Yorker story became public. Still unclear whether the FBI will interview a third Kavanaugh accuser, Julie Swetnick, who came forward through her lawyer and fierce Trump critic Michael Avenatti last week, accusing Kavanaugh of sexual misconduct at a series of high school parties, another allegation he denies. Swetnick with NBC's Kate Snow.
Can you describe to me what you saw him do?
He was very aggressive, very sloppy drunk, very mean drunk. I saw him go up to girls and paw on them, try to, get a little too handsy, touching them in private parts. I saw him try to shift clothing.
Are there people alive today who would say, I went to those parties with
Yes,
Julie?
there are people that know about those parties.
NBC News has not been able to independently corroborate Swetnick's claims. This as Kavanaugh faces new scrutiny over his drinking habits in high school and college.
I watched that hearing, and I watched a man saying that he did have difficulty as a young man with drink.
In fact, Kavanaugh never characterized his drinking that way.
I liked beer. I still like beer. But I did not drink beer to the point of blacking out, and I never sexually assaulted anyone.
But Kavanaugh's former Yale classmate, Chad Ludington, tells CNN Kavanaugh has mischaracterized his drinking in college.
I have seen Brett drunk to the point he could easily be passed out.
But you never saw him passed out?
No, I never saw him passed out, but I saw him quite drunk.
So, he saw him quite drunk. So, guys, the buzzword in this whole process has been really credibility. Everyone's credibility, right? I want to talk about Julie Swetnick a bit. Avenatti provided NBC News with 4 witnesses. 2 of them didn't get back to us. One of them has passed away, and one said that he doesn't recall Julie Swetnick.
He doesn't know her, is what he said.
Right. And there are also inconsistencies in the statement that she gave the Senate Judiciary Committee and what she said to Kate Snow. Yeah. There is a police record that is out there. She said she went to the police. We tried to get our hands on that record, and we were told it would take 30 days. I wonder why Avenatti didn't have that record to begin with. What are your thoughts about Julie Swetnick, and what are we to make of her?
I thought her inconsistencies were significant. Her changing story was significant, and her demeanor in that interview was, to me, problematic. One of the things that I thought she did, changing her story a little bit, was to borrow examples of things that Dr. Blasey Ford said in her far more credible story, examples like the laughing, that I heard these individuals laughing when they were involved in watching sort of bystanders in this series of sexual assaults occurred in tandem. And that, to me, struck me as trying to make her story more credible by taking details from somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in watching it, and we discussed it yesterday on the show, that Ms. Swetnick, she has a very colorful, shall we say, past of being accused of sexual harassment, accusing others of sexual harassment. Her lawyer, Mr. Avenatti, when he was first informed that an ex-boyfriend had tried to seek a restraining order, he didn't know that. And a lot of people are asking, why did she go to Mr. Avenatti to be her lawyer? In watching a lot of this, I have to tell you, Stephanie, last night, I watched her, I watched the ex-boyfriend, I watched Mr. Avenatti. I'm like, I don't actually want to know these people. I don't want this cast of characters in my life.
But here they are.
Right.
And what are we to make of them, Craig?
I just don't know if Julie Swetnick is going to be the thorn in the side of Judge Kavanaugh. I think the larger issue right now for the White House and for Judge Kavanaugh is the story that he told about his relationship with beer and his relationship with alcohol, and the picture that he portrayed in the hearing versus what we are hearing now from people who apparently knew him back then. Those are starkly different pictures, and there's been some talk that it may not ultimately be one of these women that undoes the nomination of Judge Kavanaugh. It may be his relationship with the truth.
And you have heard the P word thrown around. Perjury. You've heard people talk about perjury in terms of his statement.
And you would have to establish not just a sin of omission, but an attempt to dissemble and to mislead the senators. And I don't think we're anywhere near that. Judge Kavanaugh said that he over-consumed alcohol. He said that he went to sleep, which colloquially we would call passing out. So these are things that he has admitted to in testimony, and particularly in this NBC News story about the text messages, as NBC News confirms, he did testify in a phone call, a sworn testimony, in a phone call with senators, that he has been aware of these allegations when they were being made in the background, trying to support them by going to his friends.
Even though he
said, I caught wind of that.
But he said in the hearing, I didn't know about it until the New Yorker article.
Even though he was quoted in the New Yorker article saying, I deny these allegations. So before it went to press, he was told of them by the reporters.
And having worked on Capitol Hill, I worked for a former Senate Majority Leader, I just don't see his nomination going down because there's heavy drinking in Washington, D.C. Okay? And we know that the FBI, in previous interviews of him, previous background checks, they would have asked that question of Mr. Kavanaugh's friends and associates. And so, to your point, the drinking issue, I don't think it's drinking per se. Right. I think it's being set up to say maybe he got so drunk he doesn't remember that he might have sexually assaulted someone.
But here's a question for you, Craig. Did we hear a slight wobble from President Trump yesterday? He said, I'm going to keep my mind open. He then actually addressed the drinking specifically and said, I don't drink. I've never had a drink. Can you imagine me if I had, right?
He said that might actually be the best thing about me.
It might be the best thing about me. I just wonder if he left, and Maggie Haberman actually made a point of it, saying that the tone was sort of similar to the way he talked about people he was just about to sour on. Are we seeing a little bit of that?
That's a really good question.
Are you going to try to get into Mr. Trump's mind?
I got out of that business a long time ago. But, I do think that what you just pointed out there, and this is something I heard yesterday on the air, this is a president who on Monday you can be in his good graces, and by Wednesday late morning you're dead to him. It wasn't the most ringing endorsement, but there's also been some talk that Judge Kavanaugh initially wasn't Trump's number one pick. This is not a guy that the president, this is Bush's guy.
Right.
Well, Senator Lindsey Graham, he was saying last night that no matter what, whether the Republicans have the vote for Mr. Kavanaugh or not, he thinks it should go to the floor, go to a vote, put, rubber hits the road, put your money where your mouth is, put their feet by the fire, every metaphor you can think of.
But you don't think...
Get them on the record before the midterm and make it an election year issue.
You work for Senator Frist. You know they're not going to allow a vote if they don't have the votes.
Well, the strategy here is put people on the record and let the voters decide in November if they liked how their senator voted.
And you have to wonder at what point does Donald Trump say, you know what, let's go to the next guy.
Or a woman.
Or a woman, exactly.